we do know that you have several events here in the Jacksonville area. You know, you've got one tonight, you've got an event tomorrow. Looking at your life right now, how popular have you become? The circuit that you are running nationwide, tell us about this.
It's tough because it's like, where am I running to? And I'm not completely sure, even myself. But I believe in America. That's why I joined the military. That's why I joined the Marine Corps. I've seen my dad go from nothing to very successful, working hard. And right now, it just seems like people have lost their minds a little bit. It's hard to even have an intelligent conversation without people attacking you as a person. It's hard to just address certain things without everybody getting super emotional. Even with my social media posts, like even now, I've had to remind people, like, if you want to, we want differing opinions, but you need to logically explain why you disagree and not just attack the person with these, you know, Russian puppet, woke, right-wing extremists. I mean, you just, like, both sides, apolitically. It's very hard, and it's like, do we want a United States? So I know I'm veering from your question a little bit, but I guess my point is I'm here to talk to veterans, to talk to Americans. Semper Fidelis Society and Vets for Vets brought me down, and I think veterans have a very good perspective because they work with people from everywhere across the United States, and there are no right-wing, left-wing. It's just Americans wanting to serve their country. And so speaking to veterans, to me, fills me with passion because they really, to me, epitomize what America stands for. You know, you have people that come here trying to become citizens, and sometimes military services is the quickest way to do that. I'm supporting a candidate in Florida right now who came from Jamaica and got her citizenship, went on and got her master's degree, like just the American dream in a lot of ways. So I guess I started with, where am I running to? I think we need leaders that have moral courage, which is a lot of the endeavor that I went through. And so I'm speaking to people about honesty, accountability, moral courage, doing the right things. And I'm kind of just letting the path lead me where it leads me. I don't have, I think, a master plan other than just supporting good people.
Some of the veterans you'll come across, or maybe have come across already, have that deep-seated affection, that deep-seated loyalty to the military, and there may be some who might not agree with what you did, and say, you know what, you took an oath, and you violated that oath.
Well, I disagree with that. So I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And so we can have an academic argument about whether I broke that oath. I would submit to you that I upheld it more than all my peers who didn't do that. The people that disagree with me disagree with my methods, not with the content of my statements. So there's a difference there. So all the people that spoke to me were like, hey, we agree with what you said, but the manner in which you did it, wrong way, or it's going to come at too high of a personal cost, or you're not going to make any difference. Long list of arguments, but I never even heard the argument of what he said is wrong. And I guess I just fundamentally disagree. And there are, you know, I didn't make it 17 years in the Marine Corps as a battalion commander by saying whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted. There has to be order to the system. And if you do, I mean, I acknowledge that I broke some of the rules, but I did it knowingly, and I did it because I thought the rules that I were breaking outweighed the potential gain the military service could get from this. And so I did it out of a love for service, love of country, not out of anger and emotion. It was very deliberate and calculated. And I just think there's exceptional times in American history where people need to be brave enough and willing to sacrifice certain things to say some hard truths. I mean, let's go through Afghanistan evacuation. We decided to withdraw all American troops before American citizens. That doesn't make sense. We decided to conduct it in the timing of April to September, the peak fighting season. You could have done it the other 6 months and been unmolested by the Taliban. We decided to abandon the key strategic air base, Bagram Air Base. We decided to leave 7,000 prisoners in that prison on the air base, which most likely the suicide bomber came from. We then, after the situation deteriorated such that the Taliban took the whole country, tried to rapidly throw 5,000 troops back at it. At that point, they were forced to rely on the Taliban for external security there was no other options. The Taliban obviously allowed the suicide bomber to go through the external security, killed 13 service members, all the people who were standing out there. And then in response to that, we flew a drone strike and killed nothing but women and children. Like, if that list is not enough to get a general officer fired, it's like, what could it possibly take?
Let me ask you this, though. Was there, and I'm playing devil's advocate, was there any other way to get your point across? Could you have gone through the chain of command? Could you have done it another way besides going on social media in uniform and saying what you did?
Even what I did didn't get that general officer fired. I really hoped it would, but his staff picked April Fool's Day for his change of command, and he's actually still conducting his change of command on April 1st, meaning he hasn't been relieved. And so the question you're asking me is, could you have done it another way? The obvious answer is yes, but what the question I ask myself is, what's the most effective to bring attention to publicity, to apply pressure on a situation that I know is not going to apply pressure? And the way to do that was the way that I did it. Now, it still was ineffective, you could argue, because he didn't get fired over it. But I think I did start a conversation that wouldn't have happened had I gone through the proper channels. And I'll tell you, I've got a book coming out in September. I'm really proud of it. I think it's going to be really good. But I point out in the book that I went through all those processes after I made that first video, and they were all denied illegally, in my opinion. And so I guess the point I make in the book is everyone wants to credit these other ways that I could have done it. But when your complaint is senior leadership, like, those processes aren't going to allow you to go after those senior leaders. They find creative ways to stop you in those processes. And then it's quietly done so that no one knows about your complaints. And so I was in a situation where there was no way to address it. Congress doesn't hold senior military leaders accountable. The president's never going to hold senior military leaders accountable, because to fire a general in their command implies, as the commander-in-chief, that they failed. So in terms of politics, no one holds general officers accountable, Congress or the president, and they've just kind of run unchecked for too long.
You mentioned politics. What effect does it have on you when you see that there are politicians, people in leadership roles, that take what you've done and use it for their own gain, twist it, use it to go after somebody else in politics? I mean, what kind of effect does that have on you?
It was emotionally and spiritually draining. I actually just got the final fake Twitter account taken down last week. I mean, I had to send like multiple forms of ID. I mean, the social media platforms that were created, like, they stole my pictures and used it to further right-wing, anti-Biden propaganda. My name was everywhere, and it wasn't me, to the point where even the Commandant of the Marine Corps referenced me attacking the president, referring to one of these fake social media accounts. I had politicians that were using my name openly that really it was about them and not about me. And so all of this was exacerbated by the fact that I was under a gag order. So not only were politicians and different people, probably just civilians with fake social media accounts, there's also media was running, one of them was just blatantly like lies.
And so where do you stand with our current government, our current president? Do you want to make that record clear so those messages that have gotten out there, we hear it directly from you? How you feel about?
Yes, I clearly think President Biden is not very good as a strong leader. I think there are some things that he does all right, like the Russia-Ukraine situation. I mean, he called the shot on Russia invading, and he's been at least wise enough to not get involved in the no-fly zone, which could quickly escalate to nuclear war. He hasn't thrown troops at the problem. So, like, there's some things, positive things you can say. In terms of Afghanistan, like, he couldn't have played that worse. And he doesn't demonstrate a lot of leadership, but I would never say that as a uniformed military member. And quite honestly, the way you hold a president accountable is by voting. So, like, me as a military member complaining about it would do no good. My problem in my whole series of videos had to do with the general officers that were unchecked, the general officers that preach to me about accountability but don't hold themselves accountable, the double standard that was illustrated when I was fired, 12 hours after that first video without an investigation. Yet General McKenzie can kill a bunch of civilians and children with a drone strike, take a whole investigation, and then declare that there's no fault. Like, it's a microcosm for the breakdowns in the whole system.
Do you ever think back and wish that maybe you would listen to friends who were like, Stu, what are you doing? what are you saying? All right, one video's cool, but you kept going and
Yeah.
going, and I'm sure you got the little birdies on your shoulder
Yeah.
going, Stu, come on.
I mean, so to be fair to me, after the first, like when I made that first video, first of all, I went into that day not knowing I was going to make a video. It was like one of those things where I needed an outlet to vent. I wrote something on the computer and I was like, somebody needs to make a video, made a video, and even then I didn't post it. Like I drove home and chewed on it and thought about it and then finally posted it. But after I posted that first video, I was like, I'm not making any more statements. I don't plan to resign. I'll let the investigation take place. I'll let the course run. But then they fired me, and then they started attacking me in the media, and then I had former bosses attacking me on my social media. And it just got to be one of those things where it was like, I believed what I was saying. No one was addressing the content of my statements, and I felt like they were bullying me. And it's like if you get in a fight and someone starts pushing you and you feel like you're protecting somebody, you push back. And so those follow-on statements, yes, your question was, did you ever think about, your friends telling you like maybe I would go back and do different things? I probably would go back and tweak the verbiage of the follow-on statements because I started getting emotional then. At that point I knew, my marriage was falling apart, my retirement was gonna be gone, this was heading towards legal action, but I couldn't back down. Like I believed that strongly, and I just, like I said, when they started bullying me, I was not gonna back down from my statements.
There are other young men and women who are in the military who saw what you did, saw the process. They see that you've emerged and you're still alive.
Yeah.
I've read that you would not encourage others to do the same thing that you've done.
Well, so let me put that in context. I believe when people think strongly about their values, they should really analyze it. And you have to analyze your values before you get into a position of conflict. Because if you don't understand your values before a position of conflict, fear is going to drive your actions. So like most of my peers, where they're worried about their family, they're worried about their retirement, they're worried about these things, their fear drives how they react to a situation. Now, yes, in some previous interviews, I've said I wouldn't recommend anyone take the course of action that I took. And I stand by that. To clarify it, if you do what I did, you have to be prepared to take the consequences in the manner that I did. And I did. I pled guilty to all of them. I was willing to go to jail. I posted and said, I'll meet you at Monday, 08, and go to jail. Like, I'm ready for it. And so the whole time, I'm thinking, like, I'm going to take accountability. I'm going to show you what accountability looks like. But I'm not backing down from what I'm saying. So I guess just to qualify, like, if you're going to go out on that ledge, you can't act like a victim when the branch breaks and you then have to, answer for all those things that you did. And I was willing to do it. So, yeah, I guess to be honest, knowing that I was taking the brunt of everything that was going on, I really thought more people would ask for accountability within the military. And it just didn't happen. But I understand why it didn't. They got a lot to risk. But somebody needed to say it.
When you talked about that branch breaking, tell us a little bit about what you've lost. I mean, a video that wasn't even 5 minutes long ended a 17-year career.
Yep. I lost my retirement. I did not get an honorable discharge. I got a general under honorable, which is the rung down, meaning I couldn't go into the reserves of the National Guard to try and finish out my retirement, so they closed the door on that. That's probably the biggest loss. Guilty at special court martial, which is equivalent to a misdemeanor, really doesn't affect me too much.
And it affected your family as well.
And I ended up going through a divorce over it. We were happily married for 17 years, and I don't have anything bad to say. I mean, she's still the mother of my children, and we still have a good relationship, but it's hard for people to even comprehend the stress of this situation. We had reporters showing up at the house. We had people feeding her information. She was getting contacted by investigating officers, by NCIS. My kids were getting taunted at school because everyone knew that their dad was in jail. I mean, it was a circus in my hometown. And so it just became one of those situations. And then on top of all that stress was this very new direction of my life that was starting to materialize. And, I bring it out in the book that will be coming out later this summer, but she has just been through a lot in 17 years too. I've been deployed probably about 4 years cumulative, and she was looking forward to this retirement learning to play golf life that has been like the mirage on the distance that we've been moving towards, and then all of a sudden she saw me getting pulled back into a service in a different capacity, and it just became one of those things where it was a agree to go separate ways.
And looking at all of this in its totality, was it still worth speaking out?
Yes, I've never apologized. I don't regret what I did. I feel very passionately about it. And it's like, if not me, then who? If not now, then when? Somebody needed to say it. And I'm just really worried about the future of my country. Like, my goal in life is to leave a better country for my 3 boys. So would it have been easier to not speak out, take my retirement and go learn to play golf with my wife? Yes. But would my sons live in a better America had I just hid in my stability? Probably not.